Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Dave.
And join us every Thursday for a new episode of Two Player Bros, a podcast about two guys who play way too many video games. Join me and Dave as we talk about the latest in Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and VR news, previews, and reviews. We have it all, and we play it all.
And join us every other week for Post Game, where we play through and dive deep into our favorite modern classics and new releases.
That's Two Player Bros, available every Thursday wherever you get your podcast, part of the Forgotten Entertainment family.
Hey, it's Andrew Morgan, host of the Nomcast, the Netflix original movie podcast. Each week, we review the biggest Netflix original movies with special guests from the film industry, the music industry, comedians, and of course, our fellow podcasters. Check us out on the web at nomcastpod.com. Follow us on the socials at nomcastpod. And most importantly, listen and subscribe to us wherever you get podcasts. Hit that beat one time.
Hi, I'm Mike Field.
I'm Pat Whalen.
Pat is a lifelong comic book geek.
And Mike is a filmmaker and storyteller.
So naturally, a bulk of our conversations surround the world of the Marvel movies. Some consider the MCU one of the greatest achievements in modern-day filmmaking, and others just think they're comic book movies. Each episode will tackle one film and discuss the differences between the comic book and what's on screen. We'll explore the growth of the Marvel Cinematic Universe from its inception to present day and beyond, and have a little fun along the way. You may not have asked for it, you certainly don't need it, but you'll be happy we're here, we think. This is yet another MCU podcast. Pat, there's a ghost behind you.
What? What?
No, I'm sorry. That's just Ant-Man and the Wasp. Oh,
just
yes.
scary.
Dynamite opening. So, hello, Pat. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Mike. How you doing? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We are recording this after the New Year. So this is January 2nd, 2021. You will not be hearing this until, I don't know, March?
February?
Who knows? Well, actually, we are getting close. So yeah, February. You're right. So we are rolling along with Phase 3. Part 2, and we are now entering the Ant-Man and the Wasp phase of the movie. Let's quick go through it. I don't know if you had anything else to add. Or,
No,
okay.
Let's do it.
So we'll go right through it. Ant-Man and the Wasp was a runtime of 118 minutes, rated PG-13, production budget of $162 million, was released on July 6th, 2018. Opening weekend, it did $75.8 million. Domestic did $216 million, and then worldwide, $622 million. I'm not surprised about that because Ant-Man's not really there big time.
Mm-mm.
Nice, Pat, with a little shake of the head. Nope, you are correct.
Nope.
Ant-Man's just okay.
He's just there.
Directed by Peyton Reed, who did the original Ant-Man. And I know he did a Mandalorian episode that everyone seemed to love. Written by a bunch of people. Written by Chris McKenna and Eric Summers. And they have both done the Spider-Man movies, The Homecoming and Far From Home, that's coming up, for us at least. And then you have Paul Rudd with another writing credit, which just makes me think he just was ad-libbing stuff and
Probably,
writing stuff down. You had Andrew Burr, Gabriel Ferrari, are all recent writers from the original Ant-Man. So I would have just assumed they were all, I don't know, getting their heads together, put stuff up. Music by Christoph Beck, who did the other Ant-Man as well. And then cinematography by Dante Spinati. And this is his first Marvel movie, I think. Or
I believe so, yeah.
So we all know who was in this from previous. You have Paul Rudd as Scott Lang, Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne, Michael Douglas as Hank Pym, and then now we meet Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet Van Dyne. She was not in the first one, just the face of a woman that was not her.
Mm-hmm.
As I talked before about Ghost, you have Hannah John Kamen as Ghost and Lawrence Fishburne as Bill Foster. Bill Foster is from the comic. I know that, Pat.
Yes.
And who I didn't know was from the comic was Jimmy Woo, played by Randall Park.
Yeah, we'll get into him.
All right. So as we like to do, we like to talk about the movie. We like to talk about the difference between the movie and the comic. And then this movie within the MCU, which is not a lot. So, Pat, did you like it?
I had fun with all the same reasons I had fun for the first one. The good family dynamic. I think Scott Lang is a good character. He's a fun character. The antics work in this world. The Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Honey, I Blew Up the Kids antics. They work. But my problem with it is twofold. One, coming off Infinity War, especially with the dreary ending at the end of Infinity War when everybody snapped away, we transition right to this more comedic piece than something we've seen in recent years. And then how many storylines are in this thing?
There's a lot.
There's too many.
Well, there's my big note, and I seem to keep coming up with this note when we keep talking about, especially the earlier Marvel movies, is that there's no villain. There's just obstacles.
Yes.
And I know that I don't know if I wrote the note down, but I know that Peyton Reed describes this movie as part action film, part rom-com. I don't need that. Elmore Leonard type film where there are villains and antagonists and roadblocks for the heroes. I mean, that to me, that's not what I want out of this movie, but whatever. It's not mine. It's fine. But there's no big villain. We're just doing a bunch of little things. I know he's trying to say like an Elmore Leonard type film is something where it's almost like a film noir, almost like he's solving a crime, like a detective,
Yes.
Which means you have usually in those type of pulp detective novels, you have two cases that don't relate to each other, and then they do relate. That's not what happens in this movie. So
Let's break them down. You had the Save Janet from the Quantum Realm story.
right,
You had Bill Foster and Ghost.
right,
Bill Foster being the man who rescued Ghost or the woman that would be Ghost
right.
from an accident, and then he raised her and is trying to bring back her I guess
Something.
humanity or inability, her transparency. Or
Well,
something.
they ended at the end of the movie like I'm going to see a Disney Plus show with them.
Right. Which I got a note on that. And then you had Walton Goggins doing something.
To be fair, Walton Goggins is good,
He's great.
but yeah, he doesn't fit in the
No.
movie.
And then you had Scott on the run tricking the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
You said it's a rom-com. Where's the rom-com?
Well,
Where's the rom?
right. Well, I guess you're supposed to get that from Wasp and Ant-Man, but you talk about the family dynamic. This time we're not dealing with the family dynamic of Scott's family. They're there, which
Yes.
I don't need them there because I don't need to keep seeing them hugging all the time. Like
No.
that was like the big joke. It's funny. It's great. But like, and I understand that you have his daughter there because his daughter is very important to him, as it should be
Mhm.
in this movie. But I know that sets up the future of Ant-Man's franchise. So I understand why the daughter is prevalent there, but his ex-wife and her husband and that kind of stuff. Okay. But this is more about the Van Dynes or the Pims or whatever, their family dynamic.
Mhm.
It's tough. It's a tough movie because you watch it and then you're like, all right, I saw
Kinda, yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
It was good. It
Yeah.
was fun. I had
Yeah.
a good time going to the theater for it. But then the more you think about it, the more you're like, what just happened?
When we had originally talked about, we got Ant-Man and the Wasp next, this is off mic. I know we were sitting there going, I can't remember what's in it. I can't. And I knew I remembered the ending, but I totally forgot about Ghost. I knew Lawrence Fishburne was in the movie, but I totally forgot about the whole Ghost subplot.
Yeah. I remembered Ghost was in it, but like I didn't remember her background. I didn't remember how her story concluded, aside from the teaser at the end of this movie where they go
Right.
to the quantum realm to get her the quantum juice.
And the quantum juice.
The quantum juice. And then she's going to use it to stabilize her abilities, but then she disappears. And what happened to her for the 5 years in between this movie and Endgame?
Well,
Did
that's
she
one of
fade
my
away?
that's one of my notes when we start talking
All
about the MCU. But yes, that's one of my notes here. And we could bring that up later.
Yeah,
But
we could talk that.
did you notice that I thought this was pretty cool, but like Fishburne's son plays him in the younger scene.
No.
So Langston Fishburne, who's an actor, plays the younger version of Bill Foster when Foster goes and sees the ghost as a child. I can't remember what's her name. I don't even know her real name in the movie. Ava, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
But they digitally make him look like his father, just to kind of like add little things. But that's actually his son.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought
That's
that was
nice.
interesting. Yeah, that's cool.
That's
That's how it should be. But you didn't need to digitally alter him. We could get it.
He's his son. He looks like him.
What do you think about the de-aging effects that they used on Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Douglas?
I thought they were really well done.
Here's my thing with de-aging. And it's the same thing for my same comment I have for when I watch The Irishman. You can de-age faces, but you cannot de-age walking.
Yes.
And you can tell, and listen, we're all going to get old, and that's great. We all live long lives, but you can tell that Michael Douglas, he's walking like an older man.
Yes.
That's all I want to
Yeah.
say. But so you can fake it to a point.
Right. Which
Yeah.
is why I feel like they did the opposite in The Mandalorian. So this is spoilers after The Mandalorian season 2 finale. Luke Skywalker shows up and
He does?
they have
Who?
a person. Yeah. He comes and rescues Baby Yoda, and who knows what's going to happen with Disney throwing away their merchandise plan right there in The Mandalorian.
What? Well, you don't know if, first of all, it's Grogu, and it's not Baby Yoda, and you don't know if he's coming back or not.
We don't know if he's coming back.
But, I love how people are all worried that Ben Solo is going to kill him.
They're just going to erase those movies.
They don't exist.
No, but they had a younger actor come in and do
Yep.
the fight scenes that Luke does, and then they put Mark Hamill's face
Yeah.
on that kid. And so that's why it looks a little weird and awkward because they're placing another person's face on there. That's the two sides of it. You have the faces look better in Ant-Man and the Wasp, but they don't move like young people.
Yep.
Or you have the movement of a young person and the face looks a little creepy.
Yeah.
No.
This isn't brand new. I remember when Titanic came out and the scene when Rose and Jack are running down the hallway and there's lights flashing and it's flooding. This is towards the end and they're running. That's not them. If you watch it again, they actually put their faces on the two stunt actors running through there. And you can tell, if you look at their faces, you can tell they just look off. And so this isn't new.
So I didn't know that.
Yeah. So this isn't new at all. So I don't mind it. It's a nice way to have your actors there performing it, and you don't have to worry about finding young lookalikes. But then again, that's okay too.
Yeah.
I'm okay with bringing in somebody that's not necessarily just. This is him as a young person. Okay, we all look different when we get older. It's completely fine. We can handle it.
I think the problem, to keep it on the Star Wars one, is Solo.
Sure.
We know what Harrison Ford looks like as a young person. And then they come in and take this kid who not only doesn't look like Harrison Ford,
Here we go.
can't act.
Dude, that was okay. Listen, I knew that was coming. I get you there. But I will say you should watch the Coen Brothers movie he was in.
Who, the one that
the kid, the guy,
kid that plays Solo?
Yeah, he's in it's the one Hail Caesar.
That's a fun movie.
He's good in that.
He's good in that.
So I So in the other podcast that I do, Pat, called Forgotten Cinema, I always talk about how it's not always the actor's fault if he doesn't look good or she doesn't look good on screen. You have to put your trust in the director, and you also have to rely on your director and the people around you to help you deliver the best performance. So, in all fairness to that, it might not be exactly.
It wasn't
his fault.
just on him.
Absolutely,
it was
absolutely.
on Lucasfilm.
That being said,
But coming back to this,
yes. So what are we talking about again? Ant-Man and
Ant-Man and
Wasp.
Wasp.
The Yet Another Mandalorian podcast will be out in 2022. That's a joke.
Maybe.
That's a joke because I will not be doing that.
Yes. All right. So sticking back to Ant-Man and the Wasp, do you remember when you first saw this? And
No.
Okay.
I saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. Go ahead. What were you going to ask me?
No, I was going to say, coming off of Infinity War.
Yeah.
Was this too jarring to go from that to the comedy, or was it a good palate cleanser?
I think everybody coming off Infinity War wants to see Endgame, wants to see the end of that. So having to go through this and then having to go through Captain Marvel before we can get to Endgame is a little tough. Oh, Ant-Man and Wasp are out. All right, let's go watch that. That's what it's like. It's not like, oh, Infinity War's out. Oh, I want to catch that.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing like that. It was just, it's out. Let's watch it. So I don't know if jarring is not the word, but maybe it's not what you want to see right now with the Marvel logo in front of it. You want to see Endgame.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's not this movie's fault. But again, both these movies, Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, just, if they weren't in the Marvel universe, if they weren't an MCU film, I wonder if they would be better received, better put together. We don't have to force MCU nonsense in there.
Yeah. On the contrary, if it wasn't for the MCU, would we see a movie like this anymore?
Well, wasn't
an action comedy?
Well, wasn't Edgar Wright working on Ant-Man before Marvel got bought by Disney?
He was working on it as part of the original 10, or the original 6 movies, or whatever that slate was that they had made the agreement with JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley or whoever.
This is your own no, man. JP Morgan, whoever.
I forget. Edgar Wright was working on that one, and he had been working on it prior to the launch of Marvel Studios proper.
Right.
But then it was going to get tied in, and it just never really worked.
Right.
And I don't know the full story behind that. I think there was a lot to do with the Marvel hands in the pot piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also Edgar Wright. You look at his movies, they're his movies. They are his independent movies. They're his own stories that he's telling. I can't think of any that he's, aside from Scott Pilgrim, that he's adapted. He's playing in somebody else's sandbox. And when he does that and doesn't get the free reign that, say, he got on Scott Pilgrim,
right,
it's a little bit more challenging for a director like him.
Right. No, I hear that. So I want to dive, one of my other big, I don't want to say complaints, but one of my big issues with the movie is, what's the story here? Like we talked about, there's no bad guys, there's no villain. There isn't a villain. Like we meet Bill Foster, and I know that we'll get to Bill Foster in the next segment. Is he the bad guy, or do we, because then they make him out to be the bad guy, and then he's not the bad guy, and he's still doing things towards the end until finally he just is like, no, I want to save you. When he's trying to get the quantum energy to help Ghost or what have you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then his Ghost, the bodyguard, kind of like Heavy, who we're supposed to feel sympathy for, and then maybe not, but then we do.
And then the whole quantum realm stuff. There's a couple references in terms of when Sonny Birch, who is played by Goggins in this, and I didn't even put him in the first part of who's in this movie. So Walton Goggins plays Sonny Birch. He talks about quantum energy is the future, and I'm just like, it is? Since when? When did I heard about that? And then later on, they start talking about how they want to get the quantum energy to help. It's all about quantum stuff, and even Scott Lang, Paul Rudd has a great line in this where he's like, "You guys just put quantum in front of everything," and
And then when you look at the title for the third Ant-Man movie, which is going to be called Quantumania,
yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like, yeah, we do.
Yeah. Janet Van Dyne has it's actually Paul Rudd's line because she's inhabiting his body at one point. He tells them that the probability fields will shift and won't come back for another century. Yeah. And I'm thinking, what? Well, I wanted to pause the movie and be like, what does that mean? Like, where did that come from?
Plus, it doesn't make sense when you get to the end of the movie and he dives back into the quantum realm a week later after the event. So when you go into the teaser,
the probability fields will shift.
It's like, how was he able to jump back in a week later then to go get some quantum juice?
It's just it was just really a line thrown in there to give you a ticking clock or give you some kind of more stakes, higher stakes. But if you sit back and after a second watch, you watch it again, you're just like, that doesn't make any sense. Why is this line in there?
It's exactly what you said. It's to give it a reason. It's to give it some force behind what they're doing.
Right.
To make it to pressure. Otherwise, we could have spent 7 days with these people in this movie just watching them tinker away.
No, I hear you. And then there's a couple other things that I'm just I shake my head in terms of, you bring in Bill Foster and you meet him in the beginning and he's a bad guy, and then he disappears for an hour. He is nowhere to be found, and then he shows up again. So that's a little bit too much, and that's probably because you have to get into Sonny Birch stuff.
But Sonny Birch also disappears for
he does
45
too.
minutes.
He does too. He shows up which is a funny scene. There are moments in this movie that are really good.
Yeah.
The scene when he goes to interrogate Luis and they have the truth serum, and that whole thing is funny.
The Baba Yaga.
Yeah, the Baba Yaga stuff, which is really John Wick, everyone. But that's good too. Like, all that stuff is good. I finally get a them reference. I took 2 movies to get to get them to watch the Big Ant movie that I always used to watch, them, which is great too. But then there's the scene when Scott busts out Hank and Hope from jail, and they walk out the door of the FBI and they drive off. And Birch's cronies just happen to be outside the FBI. What are they waiting for? Do they know that this is happening? And I know I'm waiting for someone to be like, well, they were following Scott. Like, that's great. I got to see that in the movie. I can't assume that.
Yeah.
So that bugged me. And then finally, I think I've discovered, I think this has become cliche, this moment in movies. And correct me if I'm wrong. Something extraordinary happens outside. Either you're outside the window or I'm not looking, it's behind me. Yeah. And I'm totally engrossed in whatever I'm doing and I miss it. I'm talking about when he's big.
Yeah. He's going down the street and the people are in the Starbucks.
That has been done way too much.
Nobody is that engrossed in anything right now.
You would have heard that. Yeah.
Like, you might be, the people in Starbucks are writing their next great American script.
Ant-Man 3?
Yeah, they're writing their new novel, or they're writing their new script, and then kudos to anybody who can do that, who's not checking their phone.
As a writer, I would tell you right now, we will take any kind of distraction half the time to pull ourselves away from the computer. And the last thing I wanted to add is I had to hear about the damn Sokovia Accords again.
There was. I knew this was
had
coming.
to hear it. When Jimmy Woo comes in and starts talking about, the Sokovia Accords you violated, I'm just like, enough of these things. Oh, God, I hated them.
Yeah, I knew that was going to come. And then we don't really talk about him ever again, because I guess the world ends and nobody cares.
Well, because we can get into that later in terms of where this movie sits within the MCU. But do you have anything else, I guess, with the story itself?
Yeah, I think that one of the points you made was when they were escaping the FBI office, the jail there.
Yeah.
In the I guess Sonny Burke's cronies were outside.
Yep.
Am I making this up, or was there a moment in the story where one of the FBI guys is corrupt?
Yeah.
Did we ever follow? Does he ever get caught?
No. So what happens is which is really easy. They shrink the building.
Yep.
And then he just walks. First of all, there's about 60 agents all over the place, and he just goes in there and grabs it out of the back of the van, the little mini building,
the shrink building,
right?
Trunk building.
Yes, and then he takes it and he goes to put it in his trunk, and then he's knocked over the head. He's knocked out by not Goggins, but by Ghost.
Okay.
And then Ghost steals and that's it. And then there's a moment where they say, you hear over the radio, "Oh, we have an agent down and the building's missing." Like you hear that, but that's it.
Okay.
That's it. After that, you don't hear anything. That's Goggins contacting the FBI.
Yeah.
Because that's when he calls him after talking to Luis, and he says, "Hey, you want to get a promotion?" And then he goes and Jimmy Woo's practicing magic.
Yeah. Which, again, we brought this up with the Ragnarok film where everybody is supposed to be funny,
right?
Or Guardians of the Galaxy, or one of the two, where
Both of
everybody's
them.
supposed to be funny. This has another one of those moments where everybody's supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
And it's the little trio, the security, the ex-con group with Louise and the two other guys. They're a good, fun little group.
Yeah.
They can be funny. They're just trying to get their stuff together, and they're doing their own thing.
Right.
Scott is funny.
Mhm.
That's who he is. That's his personality. He's a little, off kilter there. But Jimmy Woo doesn't need to be funny. Walton Goggins, who is fantastic in most things except for this, doesn't need to be another funny guy.
He's aloof in this. Yeah.
And he just, I don't know. It's one of those things where, again, everybody needs to have a funny moment.
Yeah.
But no, you don't.
Yeah. Well,
You just need to be like your character.
He's the only real serious person in this movie is Hank Pym, and he's the same way he was in the first one.
Yeah.
He's crotchety, and
But he's the straight man to
right.
everybody else in this
But
movie.
but see, here's the thing. He's in he's in a different movie, and for the lack of a better term. Oh, Michelle Pfeiffer's in a different movie. Evangeline Lilly has to bridge the gap between the two. Like there's that core of I want to get my mother back. That deep. What's the word I'm looking for?
It's familial. It's about rebuilding the family bonds that they're putting together. The Van Dynes, the Pyms.
Right. It's putting the family back together, but it's a serious part.
It's a serious, yeah.
And then you have Scott and the gang, and they're all in this woohoo, having a good I will say, to the credit of the creator, the writer, and the directors, that I know that they made a concerted effort to make Scott Lang not as goofy as he was in the first one, and that is true. He does, but he doesn't do a lot in this. He has a couple action scenes, but not as many as Wasp.
No,
there's a lot more stuff with Wasp.
Right.
So
this movie should have been Wasp
and the Ant-Man.
and Ant-Man. Yeah. In terms of priority here. And I think that's, it would have been better if they even further minimized Scott's role and made it really about Wasp.
Yeah.
If they cut out the FBI stuff and didn't make it so, you added that second ticking time bomb where Scott had to get back to his house.
What's the deal that he cut with the FBI? He didn't give him the suit. He said it was destroyed. He didn't give him Hank because he says he doesn't know where they are. So what's the deal that he cut with the FBI?
I think he just said, I'm not going to be a superhero again.
Okay. I won't put the suit on.
I won't put the suit on. I won't be a superhero anymore.
Okay.
Which is, I don't know.
How do you cut a deal with the FBI when you're in a super secret prison that nobody knows about in the middle of the ocean? That Cap already came and busted we'll get to that. All right. You know what? Let's move on to that MCU portion of that.
Well, I think Cap busts them out. And then
what? Just says no. Well,
the FBI comes back to his house.
Oh, come on. He busts him out. He busts him out. He says, you guys are on the. Let's wait. Let's say
half of them are on the run. Yeah, we'll wait.
Let's save the MCU. Okay, so let's go into the comics versus the movie. Where do you want to start off? Just from the top? You want to actually?
I want to give you the quantum realm, the microverse first.
All right.
It's the key part of the Janet.
Okay.
And
before you do that, I just want to ask a question. Yeah. The Wasp was always in the original Ant-Man, right? Or did the Wasp get introduced later?
I don't know if she was the first. Right there when Hank Pym's character first showed up, but it was very close to it.
Right,
like she's always been tied to. So it's been Janet and Hank, and they've been tied together, husband and wife, divorced, not so divorced, whatever. There's been new Wasp in Ant-Man, obviously with Scott Lang and a few of the other ones that we talked about in our last Ant-Man episode.
Right.
But there's always some tie-in to Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Okay.
Or, especially Hank and Janet.
So tell me about the quantum realm.
So the quantum realm, or as it's known in the comics, is the Microverse. And it's essentially a collection of alternate dimensions that you can access only by shrinking down. So it's not a realm where small, like tiny, minuscule beings exist. You have to get small to go through the door.
Okay.
to go through all this stuff. So, and it's filled with various worlds out there. And the most famous one, and this is where I found this was interesting, is the Micronauts. And so the Micronauts are essentially, they were a group of characters created for a toy line back in the 70s and 80s when, we didn't really care about plastics and people played with action figures. So everybody, if anybody's looked into the action figure world, everything had an action figure. I'm sure you had a ton. I had a ton growing up. And so you wanted to tie the action figure into some other form of media, whether it's a comic book or a TV show, to help the sales. So the Micronauts were characters created for the toy line for Mego in the 1970s. And so they take place in this microscopic microverse where the princess and prince of Homeworld is what it's called, a commander, and then later a character who would join the Guardians of the Galaxy, Bug, join together to fight a black armored villain that slaughtered the rest of the royal family. So if you're getting a lot of Star Wars, yeah. Marvel, as they did back then, they published a ton of the tie-in comics to help, promote the toys. So it was actually the Marvel comics, when Hasbro attained the rights to what would become the Transformers,
Nice.
they published the comic books and started they basically built an mythology around the Transformers.
Okay.
And so they published the comic books for Micronauts. And they eventually would cross over with other characters like the X-Men and the Avengers. They didn't last very long. Toys didn't sell. The actual comic book ran much longer than the action figure lines did. So eventually Marvel lost the publishing rights to the Micronauts. And so they've been picked up by Image Comics, Devil's Due Publishing, and most recently IDW Publishing. IDW announced back in 2015 that they now own the publishing rights, and we're working with an agreement with Hasbro, who still owns the toy rights to these characters. And this is why, because the term Microverse is tied in with the Micronauts, they cannot use the Microverse name in the movies.
Oh, okay.
They can still use it in the comics, but they can't use it in the movies.
Okay.
If anybody wants a deeper dive on the Micronauts,
Deeper than this?
yes. I love the YouTube channel Toy Galaxy. I think I've sent you a couple of them.
You have?
They go and do it's like an 8-minute video on Micronauts, and it's really good and talks about the history of the characters, the creators, and everything. So check that one out. I think it's really good. But technically, in the Marvel Comics proper, the Microverse premiered way back in the 1940s with Captain America and Bucky when they journeyed there.
They shrunk
down.
Okay.
Yeah. In the more modern comics, it's appeared in the Fantastic Four, Ant-Man, and a few other things. Dr. Doom, the villain of Fantastic Four, decided to rule the Microverse for some time.
For some reason.
Because he couldn't rule anywhere
I'm going to rule this tiny galaxy.
So yeah, that's the Microverse. I think the story about the Mego toy line was fun.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that they couldn't use that word. That's why it's called quantum realm and all that
they
stuff.
just throw quantum in front of everything.
Quantum energy. It's the next big thing.
We're not a licensed investor or anything like that, but invest in quantum energy.
All right, so that's interesting. All right, so let's talk about Ghost.
Yes.
So in the comics, two things. Ghost was not a female.
Correct.
He was a male. And in the comic, he never fought Ant-Man.
Also correct.
So I have here that Ghost was part of the Iron Man's Rogues Gallery, and his power came from the suit, not the quantum realm or the Microverse. He became an anti-hero after joining a team of superhero humans called the Thunderbolts. So a lot to unpack there, Pat.
All true things.
Tell me about the Ghost.
So Ghost first appeared in the Iron Man comics in the late 80s. I think it was one of the runs that we recommended earlier, the run by David Michelin and Bob Layton. You were correct. Ghost is not a female character. I don't mind the gender bending in this movie.
Oh, I don't care about that. That's fine.
No big deal. It is, whatever. But this is the first time Ghost has ever been a female character. So whether it was in the comic books, the original Iron Man animated series from the 90s, the Iron Man Armored Adventures that was on Nickelodeon for a while, or the Spider-Man and Avengers Assembled cartoons. I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this might be the second female villain. I know we talked about Hela.
This is the second female antagonist in the MCU after Hela.
Yeah. I think they needed to.
Do you think this is a concerted effort on their part?
I think it was.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. I mean, whatever.
Fine actress.
I think I don't have any umbrage with whatever they did with Ghost. I will say though, I thought it was interesting that they didn't use that her problem was related to the quantum realm and not the suit wasn't her. Like, you know what I mean? So they really didn't make her a bad guy or a villain.
No, they made her. She was an obstacle.
Right. Again,
she was an obstacle.
She's someone that we have to be sympathetic to, which I don't understand that choice.
Yes.
Like, why not just make her the bad one?
Right. Because in the comics, we never get Ghost's backstory.
Right.
We believe, there's rumors that he may have been like an IT engineer who turned to crime to, and I quote, counter the oppressive rise of capitalism and destroy economic pillars.
What's everyone's problem with capitalism?
I don't know.
Don't you want to make money?
I think so. So Ghost attacked a lot of the famed Marvel corporations, whether it was Stark, it was Roxxon Energy, Roxxon Corporation, and then an Italian subsidiary of Justin Hammer's.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, but they took a villain from the comic and made him part of the Ghost backstory in this movie. So Elias Starr in the comics is Egghead.
Yes.
But they took him and now they have in the MCU, in the movies, they have made him linked with Ghost.
Yeah.
Which is not true.
This is not true at all. Okay. First, this is a Easter egg, plain and simple. It's a throwaway character that they gave a name from the comics. But you're right. Then they tie it into a bigger character. And now if Egghead ever comes back to life somehow,
right.
Now it's tied into Ghost.
Which he won't, because as soon as I heard the name Egghead, I thought Batman.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up. So there are two. So there's Egghead in the Marvel universe. And then there's Egghead, the villain in who is most famous for being in the Batman 1960s.
Played by Vincent Price.
Yes. I'll just give you kind of the background on Egghead, on Elias Starr. He was created by the familiar group Lee, Kirby, Larry Lieber. He's a scientist for the government atomic program who happened to have an egg-shaped head. Swear to God, go just Wikipedia.
You happen to have an egg-shaped head, my man.
Everything all right up there? Should you wear a hat? So after being fired for corporate espionage,
oh gosh,
he turned to a life of crime.
That's usually what happens,
as one does. And so he regularly fought Wasp and Ant-Man to the point where he actually became obsessed with Hank Pym. Why anybody would get obsessed with Hank Pym, I don't know.
Well, he's kind of a jerk in the movie, so I mean, I can understand if he's a jerk in the comic. My favorite part. I was fired for corporate espionage, but then I went up to Vermont and ran this B&B, and now life's been great. Like, where's that story? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Egghead wanted to prove that he was smarter than Hank Pym.
Here we go.
Went so far that he kidnapped his own. I can't remember if it was his own niece or his own daughter. This is. Let me make sure this is clear. Egghead captured his own niece.
Okay.
Say, for argument's sake. Not Hank Pym's niece. It was
his
Egghead
own.
Captured his own niece.
Is he stupid?
He's supposed to be smarter. So, who lost her arm in an attack.
Okay.
And then in seemingly turning over a new leaf, he built a prosthetic arm for her. Why anyone would let this man near this girl again, I don't know. But that new prosthetic arm was booby-trapped. That would then blow up if Ant-Man didn't do Egghead's bidding. And the only reason that Ant-Man has any stake in this is because he's a hero who's supposed to not let anybody die. But he has no relationship to this girl whatsoever.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
Yeah, Ant-Man eventually beat him and beat him several times. He eventually goes on to be not so much of a main villain as just like a sidekick character.
Yeah, I got you.
So he ends up building weapons and other tech for cross industries,
like the Tinkerer. Nice.
Yeah.
See, I'm learning. I talked about briefly blew past this part of the last note about Ghost because I wanted to talk about Egghead. But what are the Thunderbolts?
Oh, the Thunderbolts. Yeah. In the Marvel comics in the mid '90s, all the heroes apparently died. So they disappeared. They died. They went away. And so this group came and so that was the Thunderbolts, and they were supposed to be these heroes. And so everybody's like, they're replacement Avengers, basically. They're saving the day. They're doing everything. And what's really cool about this, and it's lost a lot of the pizzazz to it that it probably had back when it came out because there wasn't as much of the internet back then. Marvel kept the storyline completely under wraps. And in the last page, you reveal that the main hero of the Thunderbolts is actually Baron Zemo. And this is the Masters of Evil in disguise. So they're working on gaining the public's trust and then would, attempt to take over the world or do whatever they do.
Like Pinky and the Brain.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So that was the first Thunderbolts team. There's been other Thunderbolts teams afterwards. One of the more famous ones is during the superhero Civil War, when the government decided to employ supervillains to capture any of the heroes that are outstanding. So when Spider-Man switches sides in the Civil War, he goes from being on Team Tony to being on Team Cap. He then somehow becomes a fugitive, which I'm not really sure because he's registered and his identity is public, but he's going to work with the other fugitives. So he gets chased down by Venom, Goblin, a whole host of other supervillains, and they almost kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're just like a general team of anti-heroes.
Gotcha.
They're just on the edge. I know Bucky, the Winter Soldier, has been a part of them for a time, but that's who they are now. They're just constantly reinventing and telling stories with them.
Gotcha. The other big thing in this movie is that we have met Bill Foster.
Yes, we have.
And so I know we've talked about Bill Foster a little bit in Civil War when we did that show. I know who Bill Foster is because we're in conversations with you in this podcast. So I guess talk about Bill Foster, but also, do you like how he's used in the movie? How about that?
Okay. I'll give the background.
Yeah, give the
first,
background because you're going to give this huge background. And all I'm sitting there going, that's not what the movie was about. But go ahead.
So first of all, let me get this very clear. He has no connection to Ghost whatsoever. So Bill Foster was created by Don Heck and Stan Lee, first appearing as just Bill Foster in Avengers number 32. He didn't take on the name of Black Goliath until 1975. And he's gone by other names, Giant Man and Goliath. He was just introduced as a biochemist who was hired to help Giant Man, Hank Pym, who was stuck at 10 foot tall and he was trying to shrink him back down to normal size. So he sticks around the Avengers just as like a minor supporting character for years. He gains the formula eventually to the Pym particles and is able to grow to 15 feet. I forget. Do you remember remember they have this whole like measuring contest?
Yeah, in the movie.
Yeah. Do you know what he says?
Because he tells him it's Project Goliath, and as the biggest he got was 21 feet.
Oh, okay.
And then Scott was like 65 feet.
Yeah. All right. Because this is I had 15, and that's what I could find in the comics. It was his original.
Okay.
So he's kind of like an on again, off again hero working with the Avengers. He also works with the CDC. And uses other various government, Marvel, agencies in the Marvel universe. When he was fighting crime, aside from working with the Pyms, he tended to be more the street level type with Iron Fist and Luke Cage and the Falcon. Eventually, he gives up an identity and then he says, "I'm going to be Black Goliath," and then "I'm going to be Giant Man." When Hank Pym is out of the picture, then he comes back and he's just Goliath. One thing to note about that is, any African-American character in comics always had black in front of their names, just to make sure that you knew. So whether it was Black Lightning, it was Black Panther, Falcon being one of the few differences, and Power Man, Luke Cage. But Black Vulcan was another character invented in the Super Friends.
So this is not just Marvel.
It's not just Marvel. It was everybody. When he's more modernized in the 2000s and everything, he just goes by Goliath.
Right.
And so he is, and we touched on this in the Civil War episode, he's killed in the superhero battle by the Thor clone Ragnarok.
Right.
He is stuck in that size. Whatever size he gets up to, he's stuck like that. They cannot shrink him once he's dead. And so Tony has to buy like 38 plots of cemetery land to bury him in. And so that's like the big moment. And to answer your first question, no, I don't like how Bill Foster is one of the nicest guys in the Marvel universe. He's one of the smartest guys. He got asked to help and he comes and helps. He's not there to say, "Oh, I'm smarter than Hank Pym." I don't like this.
Okay.
I don't like this at all. I think they could have done so much better with him, with Lawrence Fishburne as the character. I don't know. I don't even know if you need him in this movie.
Yeah,
if you want to save him for the next movie, save him for the next movie.
Well, if you're going to introduce Bill Foster, then you should use Bill Foster as more of a side piece.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have him like this. I mean, if he's a big part of the comics and that a lot of people who love Marvel comics are going to want to see Bill Foster, I think using him in this way kind of lessens him, and then you don't get what you want to get out of that. And so if they do use him, I would. Is he on for the next one? I
don't know.
Yeah,
and I think the problem that they have with this is, I like Lawrence Fishburne as an actor, but if you were to put him in the suit and make him Giant Man, make him Goliath, and grow him to 15 feet, 21 feet tall, whatever it is, he's going to have that same problem of young Michael Douglas trying to walk and move.
Oh yeah, no,
and
absolutely.
So when they try to tie him to the older Hank Pym storyline,
but
I think he loses that ability to be a superhero.
Well, let me ask you this: in the comics, does he have a son?
I don't remember.
Okay, so then screw it. Just give him his son. Have his son. Have Langston Fishburne, who obviously can act. Have him come in as his son, and have him team up with Scott, so you can have that moment where you have Goliath and Ant-Man together doing stuff. I mean, it is what it is. That's the decision they made, and I'm not somebody who has any kind of history with the comics, so that's why I wanted to ask you if you would like the way he was portrayed in this movie.
Yeah, not really. But do you like the character that they did put on screen, knowing nothing about the comic?
I didn't mind it. I just didn't. Like I said, he disappears, and his motivation is to help her, but there's really nothing else. I don't know anything else about. I don't know anything else about him and Hank Pym's relationship other than that they don't like each other, and they never really have better moment than when he's just like, when I get back, we'll figure something out. That's not good enough. I need a longer conversation between Hank Pym and Bill Foster, because clearly a lot of stuff happened between them, and all I've gotten is backstory about it and no actual conversation between the two of them that didn't last more than 5 lines.
Yeah.
So again, Hank Pym is in a different film, and that somewhat more serious movie that the Van Dynes and Pym is in is getting overshadowed by the whole Ant-Man franchise feeling, where it's supposed to be fun. The ending when Goggins is walking around with Birch is running around with the building. What's his plan there? To get on the ferry and do what? We can get into the MCU part.
No, I'm going to get into Sonny Birch next.
Oh, go ahead.
I want to talk about him.
Then dive into Birch, because I know that there's dive into Birch. Go ahead.
Yeah. So he's one of the newer characters to pop up in this movie, newer comic book characters to pop up. When he first appeared in an Iron Man comic, he was an Iron Man guy, and he came in the early 2000s. He's more of a corporate stooge.
Mm-hmm.
So he's
not a low-level bad guy trying to be a restaurant guy?
No, and he's more like, if I was to kind of describe what he looks like in the comics, I think more Christian Bale as Dick Cheney, Jeremy Swift as Higgins and Ted Lasso.
Yep.
I think Jeremy Swift as Higgins, that's the perfect image of him straight from the comics. And I love Walton Goggins. You know I love Walton Goggins. I don't shut up about The Shield. Everybody should go watch The Shield.
Yeah, seriously, shut up.
But I feel like he mailed this one and Tomb Raider in like at the same time.
Gotcha.
Because it's the same character.
Well, listen, I don't fault any actor for when they get their shot in terms of they do stuff and then all of a sudden all the scripts come their way. I don't. Anyone that's worked in the business for so long that struggled to just say yes to everything. No, you do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
he also knows which one he can mail in too.
Go get
mail
paid.
In this because people are still going to go see.
Yeah,
he can mail in Tomb Raider.
He can have fun on this, but he's probably on this movie for what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks? Have fun, move on. Yeah, no, go get yourself paid. That's absolutely fine with me.
The comic book character is the chairman of Cross Technologies. Again, we're tying it back into Darren Cross and Cross Industries.
That was in the movie?
This is in the comics.
Oh,
this is in the comics.
Okay.
And so he eventually becomes like a weapons procurer for the U.S. government. Listen, if you want how people really feel about the U.S. government, look no further than comic books, where you get like this guy, Lex Luthor becomes the president in the DC universe. People clearly think that politicians are corrupt, and it's reflected in the comic books.
I don't know where they ever get that idea, but
I have no idea either. Comic book characters kind of similar to two characters that we've already met before. One is Justin Hammer. He's a weapons guy that works for the government. And two is Gary Shandling's Senate character from Iron Man 2.
Yeah. Oh, I'm blanking on his name.
Yeah, I can't remember either. In the comics, after Tony reveals that he is Iron Man, in any of the mediums, whether it's Iron Man 2 or it's the comic books, they try to get his technology. So Birch is actually able to acquire some of the patents for older designs and then augment them into the Darren Cross's weaponry. Similar to what happens with Justin Hammer in Iron Man 2, when he showed those designs off to the Senate, they malfunction.
Yeah.
And people die. And when that happens, Sonny Birch kills himself. There's no
Jesus.
There's no running around downtown San Francisco, I guess.
Yeah, they're San Francisco.
San Francisco. Like a crazy person. I don't know where they're coming up with this character. Again, it's another one of like, hey, we have this guy in the comics. He's kind of like what you're trying to do. Let's just use his name.
Right.
But what we never find out, and I think I asked you before, who's he working for?
Well, I have that note.
Okay. Is this going to lead us into?
Well, it can, but I have a couple of other things that I want to talk about.
Okay.
Tell me about the Wasp costume and what it references, and then I guess tell me about the Ghost costume as well. I know it says my note is that it's based on a modern design, but the hood is from an 80s outfit design.
Mhm.
So go ahead and talk about those two.
Yeah. With the Wasp costume, the first costume was a very kind of the classic kind of red and black, where she's wearing like a black bodysuit with like a red dress frock.
Is this the same costume that we saw hanging at the end of the first one?
The one she's wearing in this movie?
Yeah.
Ish, like sort of.
Okay.
Like
is it the same one that she wears in Endgame?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Or just about. I mean, they could always.
I'm just curious.
The thing with these movies is they tweak them a little bit so they could sell a new action figure.
Like Captain America is always different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the one at the end of the Ant-Man movie, that's like the base for this design.
Okay.
And then they make it work better. Like that was just put up there to look good on camera. Then they had to actually go and fit Evangeline Lilly in something that she could be in for 60% of the movie. The first comic costume is this red and black one. And then she has probably one of the more famous ones where it's like a full black bodysuit with yellow armor upper chest.
Mm-hmm.
That one came about, I believe, in the Heroes Return era, which is in the mid 90s. And then later she's had a full kind of yellow. It was almost like a combination or it was an updated version of the original 60s one, which was red and black. Now it was golden black. She had a helmet that it was a lot more reminiscent of what we see in the film.
Mm-hmm.
We never really get the full traditional colors with this costume. Like this has a lot of like greens and red piping and kind of some blues and some olives and stuff. It's not pulling straight from the comic, but there's pieces of it that I think work kind of better than some of the other ones. Like if they were to put her in that traditional dress costume, it just looks bad. Even the one that Janet is wearing is an updated one. That's the red and black one that matches the Ant-Man suit, the traditional, the one that Hank and Scott wear. Yeah, I think they do their best. And I think this is one of the more better adaptations.
Okay.
Because they're pulling from a lot of different sources, but they're making their own. Where like the Ant-Man suit is exactly what it looks like in the comics.
Right.
Captain America suits are very similar to what they look like. Iron Man suits obviously are just pulled. I think the way that female characters a lot of times are drawn in comics with what they wear doesn't work when you try to put them in the real world.
Right.
And
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Well, all the times I see all the comics that you show me when I'm looking at female characters, they're all conveniently have tears on their clothes.
Yeah.
So
Or they're wearing basically bathing suits.
Ridiculous.
And so they gave her
Grow up.
Real armor.
All right. Tell me about Ghosts.
This is a really good suit. I like what they do with it.
Okay.
You mentioned it before that it's not from her powers don't come from the quantum realm.
Right.
It's from the suit. The suit has this
in the
ability,
comics. Yeah.
In the comics, the suit has this ability to go through walls and teleport and everything.
Right. You think you'd want that tech?
Yeah, I know. This is like a perfect straight from the pages and just put it in there. And then they made it, they adapted it so that it worked for movement. It worked for the actor to be in it and made it like you said, the hood is different from the mask and the helmets that they've had.
Right.
But it's always that white suit, the white, kind of bodysuit with the tech around it and the mask with the eyes and everything and the goggles. I think this is a great way to just bring that character in.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think we should have just made it go walk through walls or teleport or transport. With all the other tech that's in this world, I don't need the tie-in to the quantum realm.
Yeah, I can, but you have to because because they have to go after Janet.
Yeah. But that said, I wouldn't have minded because you said we're supposed to get a Disney Plus show with these. I would have preferred an actual Netflix series with Ghost, where she's a S.H.I.E.L.D. assassin. I think like a Jason Bourne type, blacklisted assassin.
Again, you're jumping to an MCU thing that I'm going to bring up later. Okay. So but I hear you. But that's good. But I have one last one.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Agent Jimmy Woo.
Ooh.
Because I didn't realize he was in the comics. And then I was like, this is my note. Agent Jimmy Woo was from the comics. The Yellow Claw in 1957 and then Agents of Atlas. And then when I read that, I was like, Is he not used appropriately in these comics?
He's not used.
Okay, so I had a feeling that he was going to dive into some inappropriate use of Jimmy Woo in the comics. So explain to me the whole Jimmy Woo stuff.
So I kind of want to save Jimmy Woo for however we do
WandaVision.
WandaVision.
You're killing me.
Sorry.
You're killing me.
I want to save him for WandaVision. However we end up doing WandaVision.
So as you know, everybody, the podcast is ending after Endgame. Oh, excuse me, after Far From Home. But we will continue on in a video format because Pat's going to want to. We're going to keep going, and probably mostly Pat. You'll probably see I'll be behind the camera, but Pat will be talking about the shows, WandaVision, Hawkeye, whatever all the shows are. And so I guess if you were looking for some Jimmy Woo action, you're going to have to wait till those videos come out. And those will probably be on the Forgotten Entertainment YouTube channel page.
Yes.
So
correct.
I guess we're not talking about Jimmy Woo today. Go ahead.
Jimmy Woo is set to make an appearance in WandaVision as a member of SWORD. And I know we've touched on SWORD a little bit in the past, but SWORD is the Sentient World Observation and Response Department. So they're the space-based counterpart to S.H.I.E.L.D. The SWORD in the comics is a lot more focused on the extraterrestrial, but I'm wondering if the SWORD that we see in WandaVision is more focused on the multiversal. And again, we get, the multiverse problem popping up. So we'll see what happens with Agent Jimmy Woo, but we are going to touch on him at a later time.
Okay.
Fun fact, too, about SWORD, though.
Go ahead.
Is in a deleted scene for Thor, Darcy, remember Darcy? She references the SWORD database. Apparently, they know about SWORD, but they don't know about S.H.I.E.L.D., which probably makes why this got deleted. But she's also going to be set to return in WandaVision as a member of the SWORD team. So there you go. Now, Darcy, who takes her knowledge from Thor, is going to be a government employee. Aren't you happy?
I'm not excited about WandaVision whatsoever. I just don't know what the point is. So, but I'll watch it because, for the job. I mean, I'll watch it because it's content and we're not allowed to go anywhere. So do you want to repeat your Sonny Birch stuff or I'll just go into my note? Because we're going to dive into this movie within the MCU. My note about Sonny Birch, and this could be wrong. The note I found could be just, BS, but one of the movie's writers claims that Birch's employer is Norman Osborn.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's but I could be wrong. But yeah.
In my notes, because I didn't find that what you found. I said, is he working for Hydra? Is he working for Cross again? He's Cross.
Cross is dead.
I know. I'm just saying, is it back?
I would assume that the Spider-Man franchise is going to go past 3 movies because he's so young.
Yep.
And you just got him. Although, don't they have to renegotiate that deal with Sony?
Probably have to renegotiate.
Yeah. So I don't even know if that's going to happen.
So you got 3. This is what Spider-Man Tom Holland's been in so far. Spider-Man Homecoming, Far From Home, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame,
Civil War.
So we got 5 movies so far. Normally, I thought they signed him up for 6 or 9 picture deals.
So the next one.
So he's going to be in Spider-Man 3.
Yep.
And then he's going to be in Doctor Strange, I think.
That counts?
That counts.
Okay.
Thor 2, the little cutscene with a little moment with Chris Evans, Loki turning into Chris Evans, that counted.
Wow.
And then the little moment in Spider-Man Homecoming where he's like, so you're in detention with Chris Evans.
That counts too?
That counts too.
Wow.
They all count.
Okay.
So I don't know how many they get, but I think they're coming close to the end.
Do they own, who owns Miles Morales' character?
Marvel does now. Disney does.
So then this is what you're going to do. You're going to do the multiverse. And then when you lose Holland's Spider-Man character, you're going to just start off with Miles Morales. Yeah. And I'll tell you right now, they do a Miles Morales live action movie. It's going to be huge.
Yes, it is.
It's going to do a lot of money and it's going to be huge. And you know what? They're smart to do it.
Yep.
Because they own it. And Marvel, listen, if you're listening to this podcast, go for it. Because why not? Just be like, listen, you don't want to give us Peter Parker? Fine. We're going to go off with this and we'll create our own new trilogy and we'll have our own, we'll do our own multiverse stuff. And guess what? Oh, Iron Man's in this multiverse. So, look, it's Iron Man now. So yeah, they'll go off and do that. Regardless of that, my point was that if you're going to do more Spider-Man movies, it makes sense to bring in Norman Osborn because you have not used him yet. And I know that he is a big part of the Spider-Man franchise. I just don't know who you're going to get to play him.
No, I mean, the problem with J.K. Simmons is he was the perfect J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
And then they couldn't get anybody to replace him.
So they just used him.
Just brought him back in again.
That's fine. I don't think anybody had a problem with that.
No.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you could bring in Willem Dafoe.
No. I don't. He wouldn't want to do it anyways.
No, I don't think so.
No, not at all. But you'd have to go younger.
Because I thought that Sonny Birch was working for Justin Hammer.
Yeah.
Can we just get a show between Sam Rockwell and
Hammer
Walton Goggins?
Time. It's going to be called Hammer Time on Disney Plus.
No, he's getting Armor Wars.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, I presume that's what the rumors are. That'll pop.
Who's
back
the
up.
rumors? Just fans?
Yeah, it just pops up on the internet.
That's nothing. All right, let's talk about the tags.
Okay.
So the one big tag that relates to the movie and the MCU is the snap tag.
Yes.
Do you like it?
It answers the question of
What's going on?
What's going on? And
What I read was that whatever's happening in San Francisco is before all that, or is in the beginning, because it takes time for them to build a little mini machine, so it's.
I think
they do know of it. They have to.
No, I think what happens is, you're saying the Wakanda group? No, like
I'm saying that the amount of time it took Pym to build the little van one, was during all the stuff that's happening in Infinity War.
I don't think so.
Really?
I think the stuff that happens in Infinity War takes place over like 2 days.
Okay.
I don't think there's a lot of time in between. Like there's the attack on Vision and Wanda in Glasgow.
Right.
And then they go to Wakanda. And like the next morning or that day, whenever they get to Wakanda is the day they get attacked.
Okay.
So that's that ticking time bomb. If we're going to use that same, like they're coming to get Vision and they're not slowing down. They're not going to wait a week to send their emissary. And then, now we're going to wait a little bit longer. The New York one is happening a few hours prior to the Wakanda battle.
Okay.
As Tony goes to Titan, Tony Strange and Spider-Man go up to Titan. And so my interpretation of this one was it happened a couple weeks prior to the events of Infinity War.
Right.
So when they're building when they're on the rooftop about to jump into the van quantum realm thing.
Yeah.
That's when Thanos lands on Earth. Like as they're driving up to the top of that parking garage, Thanos arrives in Wakanda.
Okay.
That's how I figured it.
All right. And then they have the ant drumming, which is not a neither here nor there, whatever. It's funny.
But we do learn in this why it's a throwaway line and it's an easy cover up, but why the Wasp wasn't in Civil War. And it's because one, she says, you didn't call me, you didn't ask me.
Yeah, he just left.
I don't think they wanted to give away the Wasp costume yet in a different movie, especially when they were already introducing Spider-Man, but it would have unbalanced the teams too.
Well, it would unbalance the teams, but she never was fully the Wasp in the first movie, so you never really saw her as an action hero. Right. Now you're going to introduce her in a
separate movie.
Right, you're not going to do that. Yeah. You do that to some of the characters, but you're not going to do it to her. So no, it didn't make any sense to put that. But let's talk about that since you brought up Civil War, because we were kind of getting into it a little bit. And in Civil War, Ant-Man is arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in a super secret base.
Yep.
Cap breaks him out and says, "Don't come with me. You're fugitives now, but you don't have to come with me if you don't want to."
I guess, yeah.
They say that Hawkeye and Ant-Man both strike deals.
Yes.
When? So what happens? Does Cap only break out everyone but them and they stay?
Or he broke them all out and now they could go turn themselves into the FBI.
Oh, so you're saying that he broke them out of the super secret DOD prison so
that nobody knows about.
You don't think that they're going to just come on in and take them?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And to say that the agreement is, I won't be a superhero anymore, and you get 2 years of probation.
2 years of house arrest. 3 years of probation.
Yes. When we see Hawkeye in the opening of Endgame, he's just living on his farm.
Right.
And I could see why he would give that up. He's already been a spy and a secret agent and all that stuff. And it's time to retire anyway. He's got a family to take care of. But again, to your point, I don't know why the FBI, if they're the ones in charge of this, why they agree to that.
Yeah, it doesn't. Maybe because they've done good,
I guess.
But not. I can see with Hawkeye because he's done a lot for them,
mm-hmm.
and he's probably somebody. Again, we talk about how Hawkeye's not really a superhero. He's just really good at using arrows,
and he was working for the government.
Yeah.
So what he did in Civil War, I guess, is the only portion. Like he trespassed on an airport.
Yep.
What did Hawkeye do? Because he's clearly registered with the government. He's a government employee through S.H.I.E.L.D.
Well, he didn't sign the Accords,
right?
Sokovia Accords that keep popping up.
But he operated as a superhero. His identity is public.
It would have been great if for next, not Black Widow because it takes place in the 90s, but the next present day Marvel movie, someone rips up the Accords in the first scene, and they're like, it's a new era, and it's just like, dun, dun, dun. Or just give me a Sokovia Accords show. I want a show on Disney Plus called Sokovia Accords.
Or just C-SPAN and them voting.
And it's all just about it's all about them writing the literature, writing the words down for the document.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I want. Sokovia Accords.
If you look in Civil War, I think you see the actual
It's
document.
huge.
It's huge.
That document is a 4-season arc on Disney Plus. Let's go.
Well, the other piece I want to talk about is the Affordable Care Act. It was huge.
Mhm.
It was a ginormous piece of legislation that took a long time to get passed.
Yep.
It was a complicated piece to get through both houses of Congress and onto Obama's desk. And then it was a cluster.
Yeah.
Like it was a mess. And you're telling me that this giant Sokovia Accords is easily passed and then easily implemented?
Well, here's the thing too.
Get the hell out of here.
In the bill for the Accords, when they approved it, I'm wondering, was there money put aside to actually fix Sokovia? Because they completely tore the town up off the ground.
Yeah.
Completely. Put it back down. Everything, bridges are damaged. Like, so did you put money back in there to make it like, it should be like, yeah, exactly.
I think Sokovia was done.
So listen, we can't fix this anymore. So here's some money. Move.
I know it's supposed to be signed by the United Nations and all the worlds, and it was unanimously signed. Nothing is unanimously signed.
The United Nations is not they're a nonprofit. They don't have any authority.
So I have no idea how this is. Well, the other piece I want to understand is we're really getting into the weeds of the legislation of the Sokovia Accords. Is what are the riders and endorsements were thrown on there? Like, how much did the senator from Kentucky get for his people to keep them in an opioid epidemic just to sign the stupid?
Well, maybe
Sokovia
that's not
Accords?
in this Marvel universe. Jeez, that is a deep dive.
Yeah,
that is a deep dive.
So let's bring it back to the movie. The only thing that this is a weird transition.
I think we're going to talk about the opioid epidemic in America. We're talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp. But all right.
No, the only other connection I wanted to touch on was Cassie.
Okay.
And so Cassie Lang this is the last time we get her as little Cassie Lang.
Right. I know. Everyone was so upset when they recast her.
Oh,
Give me a break. This is the business.
It is. And so I love that scene with her. You know, that's the scene that I like. Like, this is the kind of family dynamic that I like, where he's sitting and giving her that motivational speech.
Right.
It's a really good scene. There's some laughs in it, but hits the core of the characters. And I think that should have been one of the driving points of this film.
Yeah.
And it's just there.
Yeah.
But, so the next time we see Cassie is in Endgame, where we get the 5-year time jump.
Right.
And she's been replaced by Emma Furman.
Right.
And we only see Emma Furman in Endgame for like 2 scenes. One, when Scott goes to her house and knocks on the door and she's there and
right.
they reunite. And I think there's a scene at the end where they're watching fireworks together or something.
Right.
At the Disney Investor Day, it was announced that Cassie would be recast with Catherine Newton in the role. Catherine Newton, for those that don't know, she had multiple episodes on Supernatural. She was in Detective Pikachu, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, Halt and Catch Fire, Big Little Lies.
Yep.
Emma Furman doesn't have that resume.
Oh, no. That's why
no disrespect to Emma Furman as an actress. She doesn't have that resume.
And to her credit, I know she posted saying like, oh, congratulations. She was fine. She knows. She knows the business.
Yeah. When you look at the rest of what's going on in the Marvel Universe, you have the Ms. Marvel show. You have Haley Steinfeld coming in as Kate Bishop in the Hawkeye series. You have Riri Williams, aka Ironheart, in the Ironheart show. And Florence Pugh in Black Widow as a potential second Black Widow, which we talked about.
Yeah, they're restocking their stable with young actors that are popular.
Yep.
They didn't start off like Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. was popular when he was Iron Man, and Chris Evans. They didn't make like the only character I know that. And it's not even Marvel, but it's X-Men, is Hugh Jackman, who got the role. He was out of nowhere, and he just blew up from that. None of these people blew up from these roles. They were already big. Benedict Cumberbatch is not Doctor Strange. He's not Sherlock.
Right. I mean, Tom Holland was Billy Elliot prior to...
What do you mean, on the stage?
On the stage.
Yeah.
Prior to being in this. That was kind of his big claim to fame. Like, if you look him up, if you're a theater fan, you know him. You're like, oh, man, I love Billy Elliot. That's him.
Billy Elliot's a really good movie.
But other than that, I think he's the only one that was really catapulted into fame through these movies.
From Spider-Man. Well, no, he was in, wasn't he in something that was, let's put it this way, Pat.
Yeah.
That's probably the first notion of what they were trying to do.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Whether they're building towards the Young Avengers, which is a group of young teenage heroes, or the Champions, a similar group.
Yeah.
This is not surprising.
No. In all fairness to all the 45 to 50 to 60-year-old nerds that are growing up and, they want it the way they want it. You are not the intended audience anymore. It is the people that are 20 and 30. Those are the people with disposable income.
Yeah.
Those are the people with money. Those are the people that go see these movies. The reason these movies are PG-13 is so people can see it who don't have to worry about the rated R rating. That is the audience.
So when this happened, people were upset about the Emma Furman thing. And so I got into a couple discussions on Instagram.
I know how you like to do that.
I always love to get fired up there. People are like, Marvel would never do this. Marvel wouldn't just recast. And all I just want to be like,
they do it all the time.
Terrence Howard.
Yeah.
Terrence Howard.
Yeah.
What do you mean Marvel would never just recast? How do you feel about Terrence Howard?
Dumb.
So
dumb. That's not how I feel about Terrence Howard.
No.
Dumb that people thought that.
I mean, Terrence Howard, I think
they recasted somebody else too.
They did. Can't remember who.
Yeah, we're blanking on it because I know they did.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even thinking about Hugo Weaving as Red Skull. That was just
that doesn't count.
That doesn't.
But
count.
they did do that. Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else they recast.
But this is what happens. It happens all.
Yeah.
So I don't know if everyone's old enough to remember not Patriot Games. Hunt for Red October. Fantastic film. Alec Baldwin plays Jack Ryan, and Alec Baldwin was going to be in Patriot Games, and he passed. And then Harrison Ford became Jack Ryan, and then he went on to do Clear and Present Danger, and nobody had a problem with that.
Nope.
Nobody had a problem with that. That's what happens in movies.
Yes.
Oh boy. All right. So, anyways,
that was the last.
There's really the only connection to anything else in the MCU in terms of just the movies that we have seen is the Snap.
The Snap and the Sokovia Accords, barely.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess they reference Civil War a little bit, that kind of creates that dynamic between Scott and Hope where, why she's upset, why Hank's upset with him because he made them fugitives.
But it's an obstacle again.
Yeah.
To their relationship.
They used the stuff in the Civil War to give them, to make the happy ending that they had at the end of the first one go away so that they can create this dynamic of they're at each other, but not really at each other because they need Scott's help and whatever.
Most of these obstacles that are present in this movie don't come from this movie.
Right. No,
the
you're right.
Between Scott and Hope in the relationship comes from
his decision to go
in Civil War.
Yeah.
And
Hank's just a grumpy old man. He's a grumpy old man in this and the last one.
It's fun though.
No. I'm fine with it.
No, but it's just fun to see.
But he's just a grumpy old man. I like that he gives Scott the business half the time. That's fine. But yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah. But
we didn't talk about the Stan Lee cameo.
That one seemed tacked on more than most of them.
Yeah.
Like Peyton Reed was like, oh, right, we forgot about that.
Crap. Yeah.
Let's get him.
And then there you go. Now we've talked about it. All right. So I will be passing on now. Pat's going to give you some recommended reading, but I will return next week with Pat. Field will return with Pat next week when we talk about Captain Marvel.
Here we go.
Here's the thing. Pat doesn't like Captain Marvel. I saw it once, so I'm curious if I'm going to like it, but Pat is anti-Captain Marvel, so sorry.
There goes our female audience.
Oh, come on, Pat. There's got to be something you like about it.
Yeah, there is.
Okay,
I think it's a tighter story, but we'll get into it.
Right.
And then a definitely tighter story than this.
Next week, Captain Marvel. And now, Pat, give us your recommended reading for Ant-Man and the Wasp. Everyone else, see you later.
As always, at the end of each episode, we like to send you home with some recommended reading that follows up on some of the characters and plots presented in this week's film. Our recommended reading section is sponsored by Infinite Heroes, comics, cards, and collectibles in Watertown, Connecticut. If you're in the Connecticut or New England area, it's a great location to pick up comics from Marvel, as well as DC, Image, and more. They also have a large collection of trading cards, toys, and collectibles. Owner Paul Santos has worked in comics for years, most recently as an editor at DC Comics. Ask him for a recommendation and tell him we sent you. Thanks for listening. As always, we got some recommended reading for you. Number 1, Avengers Epic Collection Under Siege. This collection by Roger Stern with art by John Buscema sees Janet Van Dyne take on a leadership role in the Avengers as she helps save the day from Baron Zemo. Next up, West Coast Avengers number 33 through 36. Hank Pym heads out west in The Return of Ant-Man by Steve Englehart, where he faces team infighting and Cold War enemies. And finally, the 2018 miniseries Ant-Man and the Wasp by Mark Waid and Javier Guerin that sees Scott Lang team up with the new Wasp Nadia Van Dyne when they get stranded in the Microverse. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. As always, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And tune in next week for yet another MCU podcast, Captain Marvel.